Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 612, Certified Copy, directed by Abbas Kiarostami, 2010. Now, I got this because I knew about him, Kiarostami, and I wanted to get into his work. I know Taste of Cherry is the big film from him, and it is through Criterion. However, it's an earlier release, and the transfer is fairly decent, but at the same time, a lot has changed in the past 13 years or so, or 14 years or so when it first came out, especially since it's not an anamorphic transfer. So hopefully they'll get reissued, including it being issued on Blu-ray, and therefore the transfer could be revisited, and then that could be the way to go. So the only other options I had if I wanted to go through the Criterion route, which is probably the only way to get his films, was through them, was either to get this or Close-Up. Now, I forget if it was a case where they just didn't have Close-Up on the shelves. And by the way, most of the time I like actually going to a store and getting a copy. I'm not opposed to ordering things online, especially with the right deal, and I just can't get access to it. But a lot of the times I like the feeling of just grabbing something from the shelf. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but that's how I remember doing it, and old habits die hard. So I don't know if it was a case where Close-Up was not readily available, or when it came down to those two, I felt that I had enough films that served as meta commentaries on the nature of film itself. And Close-Up is one of them. So I decided to go for Certified Copy, and again, I tend to be attracted to character studies and more human dramas as opposed to following certain story conventions. This is one where it's hard to talk about specific things without getting into spoilers, but it's in so many words, it's a love story that is not how it appears to be, or you think it's one thing, but it's something else. And from there, it makes a lot of comments about about authenticity, about the nature of love over time, and so forth. Now, but this is a good opportunity to talk about about the execution of ideas. That it really, it's not just having a good idea. It's all in the execution. And this this is the kind of thing where I can imagine this being tossed about in some writing room or some development room at a major film studio. So, wouldn't it be great if you have this couple that you think it's this, but then it immediately switches into that. It's that kind of idea. And if it weren't for Kiarostami, if it was anybody else but him, it would have come off as very different, and I think it would have. I think it would have been a lesser work. Usually, I find that when a film that is based on a twist, whether it's a plot twist, whether it's a change in perspective or perception, or you think it's one thing but then it comes into something else, it makes the contrivance of it all the more apparent. I've said before that all film is a contrivance. It is an artifice through and through, but what makes it feel less like an artifice if not a lot of attention is drawn to it. And if you make a big deal out of those twists, then it becomes like an eye roll, yeah, whatever. But the reason why it doesn't feel that way is in the execution. And in the execution, it's done in a very... It's noticeable enough so that you can tell that something is happening, but it's not played up. It's done in a very it's in a subtle yet noticeable way, if that makes sense. Another good example that doesn't, from another film that I feel that also makes the point about it's all in the execution is I'm thinking of in Adaptation, where Donald is it's established that he wants to become a screenwriter, and so he finally comes up with this great idea for a script, and it's it's a cop chasing a serial killer, and the killer taunts him and everything, but then the twist is that the cop and the killer are the same people. Now, interestingly, and then Charlie's thinking like this is a total bullshit idea. Now the funny thing is that setup, that premise, is Philip K. Dick's A Scanner Darkly, which Charlie Kaufman did attempt to adapt into a script, but it never came into fruition. And then of course it was actually made into a film with Richard Linklater not only directing it but also writing the adaptation for it. So so maybe Kaufman was not the right guy for that one. But the point is, it's the kind of. But then the reason why I bring that up is because it's the kind of idea where for one person it's just thinking, it doesn't realistically work. But Donald was able to write this script that gets everybody's attention, including Charlie's own agent, who says like, "Oh, this is the best script I've read all year." So it's all in the execution, I guess. So the point of all this is that it's all in the execution. But here, this is a case where it's done in a very subtle way, and what does come through more are the performances, and that really, and when you have a story that's fixated on a couple, there's a few other surrounding characters here and there, but it's mainly on those two. You really need to have the right two people, and you have Juliette Binoche as she's never named. She's referred to as she. That's another one, another unnamed character, and she of course has proven herself in many other films. She was in Trois Couleurs Bleues and so on. But so a very proven actress. And then for the man, it's William Simo. I think I got that name right. Yes, nice. I do try to prepare myself. Anyways, William Shimo, who actually I probably got the last name wrong too. By the way, I apologize for any and all linguistic foul-ups I've done over the course of these series. So I've probably pissed off the garden variety of Spanish, French, Poles, and the Chinese, and the Koreans, probably. So, my apologies. Anyways, so William Schimmel, who actually is an opera singer. He's not an actor, and this is his first acting role. But it's that combination, but it works. The combination works, and then of course you have Kiarostami. So now I can throw in Persian as another language I may have botched. But anyways, but it's all in who you bring into the picture to make it all work. So, but yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence. I mean, it is really good for what it is, but at the same time I feel like I know that there's more to him besides that one film, and I would like to get Close Up. I think I'm ready to add another meta commentary on there, and this in a way is another kind of meta commentary, but it's more on it's more on the character drama than it is on the bigger thing itself. So I am interested in seeing Close Up. I would like to see Taste of Cherry, and I'm going to wait for a decent presentation. I may just end up just watching it the first go around just to know what it's all about, but then wait to own it when it comes out in a better transfer. So, so I would say that if you ever heard about, and I guess that's the other thing is I've gotten to a point where I'm so steeped in art house cinema and European cinema. Yes, I know he's from Iran, but this was a French, Italian, Belgian co-production. It was, and it competed at Cannes and all that. But because I'm steeped in that art house circuit, it's a name that I notice because of the kinds of films I get into. So I would say that on the one hand, it could be a good way of getting into that other world, but But I also understand if it's not really high on the. It's not an absolute top priority that you should see this. But I would say that if what I say, and this is true with all the films that I've ever talked about, if anything that I said it sounds interesting, that should be a good incentive for you to check it out. But I wouldn't put this on the high priority list. Maybe compared to some of the other films that I've talked about, but if you want to see, but I will say that it is an example, and I've said this before, that it is an example of a film that's more contemporary, and there are plenty of other films that have come out in the last couple of years that do this. That shows that there are people who do care about cinema, that are trying things, that want to make works of quality, and so it's not all the multiplex affairs. In fact, this was a film that was shot using the Red 1, so this is actually digital cinema, but it's also one of those films where you don't really notice it because it's a combination of, well, the camera itself is high quality, but you also have a good team behind it that knows how to use that camera well and bring out its best qualities and diminish some of its worst. Because I believe it was the Red 1 that they used, and since then they've continued to improve their cameras. So yeah. Sorry for that being kind of a quick and dirty one, but again, I didn't want to go into too many spoilers and such, so it's very, very limited. So at any rate, certified copy. And until next time, take care.